You should be
okay. Now it seems to be working. Okay.
Good.
Hi, everyone. I'll start the screen sharing. Okay, seems to be working fine. Okay. Well, thank you for having me back. It is a pleasure to be as part of this great event of EVA. And congratulations for making this online conference such a success. This time I will be presenting a project called the Dream of Scipio, which is in collaboration with the Italian Air Force, which somehow deviates from the kind of work I've been making for over 10 years that I presented also last year as part of EVA, and which focuses on radio technologies and the use of these large antennas, such as the Green Bank Observatory in West Virginia. The project, the Dream of Scipio, started, however, from also radio technologies. In spring 2018, I had a solo exhibition in Italy, where I included an experiment, which I called the Dream of Scipio, in which I invited Ennio D'Onofrio, a radio operator located in the center of Italy. And I know that Ennio receives every day a new image from a Russian satellite called Meteor M2. And I asked Ennio if he could show on a daily basis a new image of the part of the Earth that he could see with his antenna. So every image he showed a new photo that he received with his hand-built antenna. And this is also the image of the satellite that is receiving. What I find really interesting about these images is that for a specific moment in time and space, Ennio D'Onofrio is able to receive from this satellite this image of the Earth, which is essentially his location on Earth zoomed out about 832 kilometers, which is the distance of the satellite in orbit. So it's a form of self-reflection, in my opinion. It's as if Ennio can see himself and his station from such a great height and really somehow observe his position on this planet in a real time. And I find that really interesting. These are some of the images that he has been receiving as part of the exhibition. And as you can probably see, the color scheme of the Russian satellite is very different from the one used by the American satellite, the equivalent American satellite. So the radius of the section of the Earth that Ennio can receive with this antenna is actually quite broad. Spans between the Atlantic Ocean and the Caspian Sea. The title, The Dream of Scipio, was inspired by a literary dialogue written by Cicero in between 54 and 51 before Christ. And this literary dialogue describes a Roman general, Scipio Aemilianus, who after a long banqueting eventually fall asleep. And during his sleep, he dreams of meeting one of his mighty ancestors, Scipio Africanus, and they meet at the edge of the heavens, where it was thought that the souls were resting next to the gods. And from that vantage point, they start looking down at the Earth and looking also at the stars. And suddenly, Scipio Aemilianus, during the dream becomes self-aware, as if in a sort of lucid dreaming, and realizes how insignificant his conquests and even the entire Earth are in relation to the cosmos. And this is a quote from the from the Dream of Scipio that I don't have time to read, but it is essentially a very poignant description of what we call the view from above. And this was very influential also during the medieval time. And contemporary scholars sees it as one of the earliest descriptions of humankind envisioning the sight of the Earth from space. The very first written account of this intuition of the Earth seen from space is from Plato. And Plato's description is also quoted in a beautiful book called Earthrise by Robert Poole, which I highly recommend. And in his description of the Earth, Plato goes extremely close to the real appearance of the Earth that we are now accustomed to see through satellite images. However, he pictures the Earth as a very colorful planet, which is exactly close to reality, and mostly composed of land, which we know by now that it's not the case. It's mostly a water planet. But nevertheless, this description is extremely realistic if one thinks that it was written in 100 years before the Dream of Scipio. In the exhibition, I also brought the Dream of Scipio and the overview effect together. The overview effect is a field of research that has been influential in my work for many years since I first had a conversation with Frank White in 2013. And Frank White describes the overview effect as the cognitive shift that happens in the mind of the astronauts after witnessing the sight of the Earth from outer space. And this cognitive shift includes an acquiring a greater awareness of the interconnectivity of all human and physical events taking place on Earth. And this kind of knowledge for people who didn't have the chance to go into outer space, it's a kind of knowledge we are gradually acquiring over millennia, centuries, decades, thanks to the kind of description from the Scipio dream, for example, and images of satellites or space probes. So I think it's not far-fetched to say that these satellite images and astronautics, cosmonautics has been gradually fulfilling this dream of Scipio, which is the dream of a better understanding our position in relation to the Earth and in relation to the stars. So from 2018, I kind of continued developing this experiment thanks to the collective exhibition called Exploded View, organized by a Dutch curator, Krien Klevis, who brought together several artists to the regional park of the Appian Way in Rome. And during 2019, I had the opportunity to discover about a flight presented by the Wright brothers in 1909 in one of the locations of this very big archaeological park, in a location called Centocelle Park, which you see here in the photo, which later became a military airport. And now it is essentially just an archaeological site, but you still see a trace of the previous runway, which is now closed. So in 1909, the Wright brothers presented a series of flights, exactly 67 flights. And in one of these flights on 24 April 1909, Wilbur Wright also permitted Federico Valle, a cameraman, to sit as a passenger and to film the flight, which is the video you see now. And this is the first ever footage of taken from a plane. So this is the first time humankind record itself flying over the Earth on a plane. And I think it is possible that this this footage was filmed with a Lumière cinematograph. And it is now property of Film Archive Austria, which kindly agreed to let me use it. So the film presents the excitement of the preparation for the flight and the moments when the flyer, a rudimental yet visionary flying machine, lifts itself off the ground, hovering several meters above the ground and placing its wings on top of the ancient ruins, echoing and even surpassing their grandiosity. I think later on in the film you will see the ruins a little bit more clearly. The footage blends the past, present, and future, elevating the revolutionary contour of the flyer in the foreground against the timeless and blurry rural landscape in the background. The footage lyrically parades the weightless, effortless motion of the wings above the ground, a symbol of the achievement of a long-standing human dream, the visualization of a utopia becoming real thanks to the human intellect and audacity, while casting the shadow of gloomy prospects ahead with the exploitation of the newly achieved freedom and technological advancements in war supremacy. It is quite known that the Wright brothers, when they developed their prototype of the flyer, first approached the American Army as they immediately foresee the potential of this technology in warfare. However, they were unsuccessful with the American Army, but they successfully obtained an agreement with the Italian Army, the French Army, the German Army. So in Europe, this innovative technology became immediately a very powerful tool for warfare, and it was immediately used during World War I. So as soon as the film ends, yes, I like to also show that this image, which is quite interesting. So not only during this flight, humankind first filmed itself flying over the Earth on an aeroplane. And also this was the first time when an aeroplane itself was filmed from the air, and exactly from a hot air balloon. So again, this echoing of humankind filming itself, becoming gradually self-aware and self-reflecting upon this dream gradually becoming true, and gradually acquiring this self-awareness of its position in relation to the Earth and the cosmos. I think it's quite interesting. And of course, this growing self-awareness has been developing over the last few decades thanks to satellite images and space images, such as the Earthrise photo, the blue marble image, and until eventually the Earth becomes a dot in the middle of the infinite space in the pale blue dot image from 1990s, when the Voyager turned itself towards the Earth for the last time before eventually continuing sailing towards interstellar space. And for me, this image is really iconic of the fact that at some point humankind will decide to lose control over its own planet and venture towards the unknown of the interstellar space. So when I started collaborating with the Italian Air Force in 2018, the plan was to host a public event in 2020, which unfortunately we had to halt. We started, however, looking at satellite images of the Centocelle Park in order to reconstruct the trajectory of the flight presented by the Wright brothers in 1909. And we successfully managed to reconstruct the trajectory by looking at these satellite images and looking and comparing them with the landmarks that are still existing because they are archaeological sites. So the plan is to host a public event during which we will present an augmented reality visualization of the flight. So the historical footage will be overlapped with the landscape of the Centocelle Park. And also the film will take the participants into a sort of a dream state by zooming out from the location of the Centocelle Park into outer space, reaching the vantage point of the pale blue dot eventually. So reaching that moment when we leave our solar system. The objective of the project, however, is to restage the physical flight in 2023, which is the 100-year anniversary of the Air Force, Italian Air Force. And the flyer will be built based on existing drawings and also on this replica, which is exhibited at the Italian Air Force Museum in Vigna di Valle, not far from Rome. And I think this staging of the historical event will be very interesting for me to explore the boundary of the mental, of the dream state towards the physical state. So how to bring something which is in humankind's imagination for millennia into something physical and restage that historical moment when this actually happened. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Daniela. That was really very fascinating. I think really we should all be there for this grand event. It sounds absolutely wonderful.
I'm sure you'll an invitation.
Yeah, thank you very much. Send us all an invitation.
Absolutely.
We'll make sense that contingent of 50 there. There's one comment come up on chat, and I think this is with reference to some of your earlier images. It is from Anna Notaro, and she says, "Fantastic presentation, Daniela. It made me think of the futurist aero painting of artists like Balla." I think she means Giacomo Balla. Is that true, do you think?
Yes, of course. I mean, all the specialism and I mean, also the futuristic paintings like Balla's, they're all part of this history of visualizing the earth from above, also in the arts. I find, of course, here, since I initiating this collaboration with the Air Force, I questioned, of course, my ethical relation as an artist with the actual Air Force objectives and history. But eventually I found that there is a very respectful relationship, at least with the curator of the museum of the Italian Air Force, who is in charge of helping me in developing this project. So although in a sense, this is a sort of, this project could be interpreted as a celebration of technology, the way, for example, the futurists and Balla were celebrating. I really like to also keep some questions open about how do we use technology, right, and how often these dreams can turn into nightmares, and how really this ambition to somehow go beyond our own limits can also have some other unfortunate outcomes. So
I think I'm pleased to hear that the futurists live on. Anyway, thank you very much for your talk, Daniela.